So one of the first things we've been asking everybody to do is to kind of just tell us a bit about yourself, like where you work and what you do.
Okay, so my name is Sarah Waldrop. I work for the Mental Health Association of East Tennessee, which is located in Knoxville. But for my position specifically, I'm the Southeast Regional Coordinator. And basically what I do is I do everything from community networking to actually presenting our materials, whether that be to students or to teachers. I come up with some of the educational materials, as does my colleagues. And pretty much our main goal is just to increase the mental health awareness and prevention for adults and youth in the community. And so basically this, we have our mental health 101 program, which is kind of our primary project, right? And so basically what we do with the mental health 101 is this is where we go into schools and we present on our curriculum, which is changed every year, so it's always updated. And so part of my position is to get the scheduling done. And the other part of my position is to work on the curriculum as well as present when necessary. We really like to just push out our peer recovery call center and our free screenings that we do.
Really awesome. So you mentioned the courses that you do for schools. How are you guys going about making sure that students are still having access to those resources?
We've been coming up with web-based education. And so within like the first 2 weeks, we came out with our Coping with COVID-19 for students. And it was catered specifically to students. And it pretty much was talking about what COVID-19 is, what it means for us, how it can affect your body, how it can affect your mind, and how to healthily deal with what you may be feeling. Along with that, we had it translated into Spanish as well, because there is a very big Spanish-speaking community here in the Southeast, so we wanted to make sure they also had access to that. And then we've also been doing a lot more media-based things that are a little bit quicker, and those are more specific to like what we're doing or what some of the educators are doing to make it a little bit more personal for students and other people in the community to watch.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Are there ways that students who aren't in those classes necessarily to have access to those resources?
So we have heavily promoted them on our social media, as well as I know we've been sending them to our community contacts as well. So while we send it to our list of teachers and social workers and school counselors to send to students that we have had past relations with, so we've been pushing it out to everyone that we can.
So that's really helpful. In those resources, what problems are you seeing the most for mental health right now for students?
So specifically for youth, it's been what we've seen is an increase in anxiety, depression, and stress. We do offer mental health screenings that we do online through our website, mhaet.com. With everything that has happened, it has taken a toll on the community as a whole, but especially for people that are typically in schools, losing so much of the norm and what they were looking forward to all year. That being taken away is obviously going to lead to some very upset feelings. Ultimately, we do know that there's been an increase in anxiety and stress, specifically surrounding everything that's been going on.
Do you have any tips for students who are kind of facing that, those anxious thoughts or those feelings of sadness from canceled events or anything like that?
Yeah, so the main thing that we really like to focus on is learning how to manage any of those kind of feelings. We know that any feeling that you can have, you can manage in a very healthy way. And so it's super important for students to find what works best for them. So one thing that I know we've really pushed for students, having to do distance learning at home or whatever the situation may be, setting a new routine is what we have found can be very effective because it can kind of bring some control back into your life. And so it's as simple as literally just kind of getting up at the same time each day and making your bed or eating the same thing for breakfast, or knowing at lunchtime at 12 o'clock each day you're going to go for a run, or do something each day and have something to look forward to each day that you know that you can control, because that can definitely help with feelings of anxiety and feeling out of control. It can bring back some normalcy. It's also very important for students to know that they can still reach out to their friends and their loved ones and trusted adults. Making sure that you're remaining in those connections in a healthy way has been very beneficial for a lot of people.
So are there any kind of things that you've seen that may be really helpful to incorporate into your new routine to promote better mental health during this time, or things to kind of maintain your mental health?
Yeah, absolutely. I know one of the most effective things for me, as well as some of my coworkers, is setting a break time is very important. It's easy to get bogged down, and it's easy to not take a break because you don't think about throughout the day in school or throughout the day at work, you have breaks, whether it be in between classes, your lunch break, if you get up and go talk to a coworker, or you're even in class and you have time to talk to a friend, you get breaks throughout the day. So making sure that you're still taking those breaks during your normal day is very important, because if you get too bogged down in the I just have to be productive and I can't move and I have to do this for 8 hours straight, that can severely hinder your mental health. Because another one is finding time throughout the day to practice self-care. It has to be a part of your daily routine. I feel like sometimes self-care gets the, bad connotation that you're being self-indulgent or selfish, and kind of making sure that you change that perspective and understand that self-care is giving you what you need, giving your mind what it needs, and taking that break is super important. And self-care looks different for everyone. And so finding what works best for you and using that, I think is very important, as well as maintaining good mental health.
You mentioned that students can overwork themselves, or kind of get bogged down, not take breaks, and kind of forget to take breaks like we normally would. Are there any other kind of things that you've seen students doing that are like unhealthy for their mental health, that are just bad habits that we're creating during social distancing?
With social distancing, with us being at home, our time on social media has increased, and our time that we have spent watching the news and learning about updates has increased significantly. And with this, you have to know when to take a step back. Seeing all the arguments, seeing this versus that can hinder your mental health. That can make you feel more anxious just by looking at it. And so I think that it's very important to learn when to put the phone down and when to take a break from the screens and the news. Finding those trustworthy sources, finding positive things that are coming out of this is one way that people are coping with it, kind of trying to spread the message of hope. I think that's very important to keep in the back of our heads. Social media can make us compare ourselves to how well other people are doing. And I think that can be dangerous, especially during a time like this, because it's very filtered. Like, you only see what people want you to see on social media.
But you mentioned that, you start comparing yourself to others, and you're like, well, so-and-so's being so productive. How can I do that? Do you have any tips for students to stay on top of their workload if they're having trouble motivating themselves?
If you aim for perfection, you are setting yourself up for failure, right? And so you have to make sure that you look at what is the most important thing and work towards that first. But understanding that, like, okay, everyone's going through something right now. If I'm still putting in effort each day and I'm still meeting a goal each day, be proud of the successes that you're able to have. So I think it's important to just aim for balance, understand what is the priorities in regards to your goals and your tasks, making sure, like, if it's due tomorrow, I probably need to work on this today and make sure this is the only thing I work on. Manage it in a way that, you can forgive yourself if you don't get it done exactly when you need to, and also applaud yourself for whenever you do complete the task that you have set for yourself.
That's one thing that I've been struggling with this week, is kind of like talking to my parents about like where I'm at with like motivation to do my work, or where like how things are important in my work, or like, balancing all of that. So what can parents do to be more aware of the state of their teens' mental health?
So I know one thing that we have done, we've actually put out a parenting during the COVID-19 educational training where it talks about kind of like understanding the family dynamic right now and the stress that not only the parents but the students and the kids are feeling as well. But I also just think that I think it's just important to remember that we all went to school, and we all had to do this at one point in our lives. And so sometimes it's easy for us to forget that, or it's easy for us to only think about the perspective of what we've got going on with it. And so just trying to sympathize and empathize in the best way that you can. I think that it can be really beneficial to make sure we're focusing on the positives right now, because it is easy to get bogged down in the negatives. It definitely needs to be something each day that someone's proud of, or they feel like they succeeded in completing even, and just saying that to the parent and to the family so that they understand where each one is at.
So I know that something that our teachers have been talking to us about has been that they're worried about, stressing us out too much or adding too much work to our plate. So do you have any advice for teachers who are worried about adding too much to overwhelm students?
The teachers know their students best. So I think honestly for teachers to go with their instinct. If they feel like their students can handle it, then I would go for it. B, like that teacher is doing, to check in with your students. I think that's the most beneficial thing that anyone can do right now, is to check in. And so as long as they continue to check in with their students, that kind of deal, making sure that that's just a priority, I think right now would probably be the most effective way.
So do you have any tips for students to know when they should stop and take a break?
So honestly, if you can keep up a similar timeline to how you did in school, it can be effective, because you do need breaks throughout the day in order for you just to kind of refocus. If it works for students to kind of keep the same schedule that they had in school, I think it could be very effective.
That's definitely the tip that I needed, is someone else to tell me that I need to take breaks, because I do, I know I'm too hard on myself and don't want to take them. I know a lot of students are that way too. That's about all the questions that I can think of. If you have anything else you'd like to add, or any questions you have for us.
Okay, awesome. Well, I definitely appreciate this opportunity. I really like talking to you guys, and it's fun, and I'm hopeful that it's helpful. So